All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for showing up. Wow, a lot of comments already. Thanks for. I think the fact that we're doing a Gary Graham retrospective motivated a bunch of people to come on out tonight. So, want to welcome our crew. We put together a big group tonight. So I'm going to allow each of them to introduce themselves and tell us where they're from. We'll start with Jefferson.
Well, thanks, Alec. Thanks, guys, and everyone that's here in the group and in the chat. My name's Jefferson. I go by Big J on Beyond Trek podcast, and I'm talking to you guys from the wonderfully pleasant weather of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm just kidding by that. It is horrible out here. So thanks for having me on tonight. Glad to. I've sat with you guys several times, and it's always a pleasure to do that. This is a good way to spend a Friday night.
Cousin Cheeto.
I'm Cousin Cheeto by birth name, and I come from NerdTube. Is a kind of a variety nerd channel. We talk about everything from Trek to Star Trek to Star Wars to Doctor Who to wrestling to all that cool stuff. And so, yeah, we're just kind of a variety channel. We do like to talk about Star Trek a lot. Actually, Alec was on our podcast last week, so he graciously invited us on to this week. Unfortunately, any plans that we had to talk had now been waylaid by the unfortunate passing this week. But I'm still glad to be here and looking forward to talk a little bit about Gary and, the impact he's left.
Great. Major Rage.
Yes, sir. I am a contributor at NerdTube as well. I also have a gaming channel, Major Rage 4757, and you can find me over at Twitch TV at Major Rage TV. Big Trekkie, though. I talk about Trek and Dragon Ball and Final Fantasy with Cheeto over on NerdTube. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate everybody that's shown up tonight. But just it was shocking to find out this week, and my heart goes out to his family and friends. And I'm terribly sorry for your loss.
And last, Vance Major, I'm gonna unmute you. Vance is calling in from work. Vance, how you doing?
Fighting the frog here, my friend.
Good. Real quick, tell us about. I will say Vance is the official godfather of Star Trek fan films.
Yeah, I No Budget Productions and Filmfare Productions, and I get around. So that's about it.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to start off with. I have a video, and we dug this out this week. This is a video from Axacon, which was the first Axanar convention we did at our studio in 2018. And we had Gary Graham and we had JG Hertzler out. And so we're going to show this video. It's about, let's see, how long, all told, it's 36 minutes. So we're going to show it to you guys. Hopefully you enjoy it. It's a lot of good Gary stuff. I think you get a little deeper understanding about Gary. What he was about and what he was like, and it's really good stuff. And then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss him. We're going to talk about Gary and go from there. I want to thank everyone who's coming out. Hey, and since some of you are going to ask in the comments at some point, the answer is this summer. The question is, when's Axanar coming out? And that's it. And the one thing I will tell you before we start, Gary makes his final performance in the next 2 episodes of Axanar. So you will get, let me figure out how
That'll give me time to get my beach body ready.
What's that?
That'll give me time to get my beach body ready. The summer
all
body.
On pins and needles for the next Vulcan walking scene. I personally can't get enough of such scenes.
Well, I can still
Gary
walk.
Effing Graham.
Gary effing Graham. Had my name legally changed to, it's not Gary Rand Graham anymore.
Forgive us.
Gary effing Graham.
Forgive us. We know
Sorry,
not what we do.
You can cut that out. Zip.
Yeah. Boop.
first fan film that you guys did was Star Trek Gods and Men.
Together?
Together.
Yeah, we
I
were
think.
in
I don't. Did you do any fan films before that? Either one of you?
Not that I recall.
I don't
remember.
I don't think so.
I don't remember.
And most of the films I have done have nothing to do with fans. The fans don't care for them.
They pay for them, but they don't care for
Not
them.
very much, no. not very often.
So in 2006, you guys both got roped into doing Star Trek Gods and Men. So how did that happen?
Rope. Hemp rope.
Tim Ross was directing.
He was directing it.
Terrific actor, and I said, sure.
He said the cast members, and I was going, yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then they got to JG Hertzler, and I go,
not so much.
Does he have to? Okay. So yeah, that's
He'll just be working back behind the camera, so don't worry about him too much.
doing craft services. That was you running out of Ritz crackers.
They told me it was crap services, and I said, well, I can handle that.
Oh, and then the toilets backed
And then the toilets backed up.
Boom, it was downhill from there.
So what was the experience like working on?
Does that answer your question?
I think I just explained the experience. It was like, there's toilets backed up, 110 degrees, and then it got bad.
Yeah, I think it went downhill from there. But
once the sticks came in and the scene was rolling, it was fun.
Action.
It was a gas. It was a gas playing with all my old friends. But then there would be the eventual sad cut, and we'd be back to miserable conditions. Everybody's frustrated and on each other's nerves and screaming and hollering. And you weren't there when Tim takes his book and just slams it down on the table and walks off. And Walter walks off, and Nichelle stormed off.
Yeah.
And just a couple of us hanging around going, what just happened?
Okay.
Wow. And
It's all right. It's all right.
We're back.
It's all right. It's all right.
We're not supposed to talk.
That's all right. He's British. He doesn't. Pay
those
attention to
Brits.
things like that.
Don't put it on me. I'm listening.
those Brits are so ill-tempered,
The Brits they're blamed for everything.
ill-mannered.
Yes.
Hey, I'm working here. All right. So Gary then went on from that fan film to do Renegades, right?
Starred in stage, screen, and television. Renegades, yes.
What was
What was
different
I-
from doing Renegades from doing Of Gods and Men?
Well, in Gods and Men, I was the character. I was a shapeshifter, which was convenient because I could only work half the time, and then suddenly.
Renegades were a shapeshifter, actually.
No. In Of Gods and Men, I was a shapeshifter. And I would be in a scene, and Tim would say, freeze. And I'd freeze. And then I'd move in, and Garrett Wong would come in, and I could go take a nap. Or go home.
You would become Garrett Wong.
I would become Garrett Wong, even though it's supposed to be me.
Right.
Is another form. So I like that. Work half the time. And
I was scheduled. I was penciled in to do Renegades, but then they changed the schedule from summer to fall.
Oh.
And I said, well, my daughter's starting college. I can't be, because I have no idea what's going to happen there. So I said, I got to be in New York rather than 3,000 miles away.
But we shot in New York.
No, you didn't. In Renegades?
Not in Renegades.
No,
Of Gods
I'm talking
and Men.
about Renegades.
Oh,
Did I
sorry.
say Gods and Men?
Sorry.
Forgive me.
I didn't get the
I
memo.
was that British. He was making sounds again. Have him please extricate
It's
it
the
from the
Brit.
studio.
He distracted me. That guy over there, he distracted me.
Folks know how difficult it is to do.
They said, would you like to direct Mr. Graham in a scene? And he thought they meant distract.
Yes.
Direct, distract.
We Americans are not good at pronunciation, so he's very,
Dyslexia
exacting
of the mind.
He's an exacting director.
So after, in Gary's case, 2 fan films, in your case, 1 fan film, then.
Well, it doesn't mean I'm a bad
It's not
guy.
that we're keeping score.
Right. Jeez.
And if we just zip that
Just
out,
one fan
edit
film
it
for
out.
me.
But then came Axanar, specifically Prelude to Axanar. How did you guys go from just walking down the street one day to agreeing to do Axanar? How did that happen?
And to being litigants.
That's another part of the question that happens later in the
That
interview.
comes on a little bit. That's Axanar Part 3.
But yeah, so the first thing, you're sitting there minding your own business, and what happens?
CBS Pounds. No. From Of Gods and Men to Renegades to God, I don't even remember.
Gods and Men was the first one in 2006. Renegades was then 2014.
Okay, the Renegades. Good.
Well, no, we're talking about
Axanar.
But yes,
Axanar.
But Renegades actually happened.
So
was filmed
confused.
first, and then Axanar
Right.
was filmed next. So
Right.
in Gary's case, but basically, you guys were doing some fan films. But what led you to agree to do Axanar? I'm guessing Alec pitched it to you, or some other buddy.
You mean prelude to Axanar?
Prelude to
Prelude.
Axanar.
Liquid you.
Although,
You'd.
interesting question
Prelude.
here. Let me ask you a question. Originally, it was supposed to be a big Axanar fan film. But then Alec decided to do Prelude to Axanar. When you were pitched it, were you pitched the 90-minute and then told it's going to be a 20-minute thing first? Or were you just pitched the 20-minute thing?
I don't recall.
I don't have any
I think it was
idea.
the entire thing.
Yeah, I don't
The entire
remember.
thing was going to be one thing, and I think we were going to do it in stages. I don't remember what he said.
I've
A
never
lying
seen this woman before, officer.
It's hard to keep up with him. I have no idea. He's
No.
just.
But he talked you into doing it.
Well, yes.
Blackmailed us is a better word.
He mentioned, everyone that was going to be doing it.
Who was already doing
Claude Rains was scheduled, penciled in. Claude Rains, Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck was going to do it.
Peck.
And when they didn't show up, they lassoed those other folks. What are their names?
I don't know.
No, we don't know.
We'll talk in these false British accents for a
Fakey
while
British
until we
accents.
get back onto truth mode.
hardest interview
There it is. Ever.
Okay. Was anybody else signed up when you guys? I'm guessing Richard Hatch was already in there, right?
In fact, that's why
Richard
I did it.
Hatch, yes.
That's why I did it. No offense, my good friend.
Absolutely.
But I
None
heard that
taken.
Richard Hatch was not just in it, but was going to play a Klingon. Pretty boy, going to put on the Klingon head and play a Klingon. And I said, oh, I'm in. That's it. Sure, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the.
For a hefty sum. I
Yeah,
would say.
no,
But I
all
didn't
the
get
money
the
went
hefty
that
sum.
way. He had another Porsche he had to buy. Gary, he's a sports car driver and a biker. You're a biker, yes?
Was.
Do you have a bike?
Was.
You don't still
I
have
had
a
a
bike?
couple of Harleys. No, I don't.
Couple Harleys.
Yeah.
Whoa.
When my daughter came along, I said, "Oh,
Better
I
ease off."
I want to see her grow up."
Yeah, yeah.
Motorcycle.
Motorcycle. Exactly.
What was the question?
Oh, I forgot.
So,
You other people were signed up to do Axanar, and your thought process at that point was, Richard Hatch already signed up. Who else was signed up?
my first reaction was, I read the script, Talking Heads, and I said, "What? You can't. You're talking about science fiction. You can't have talking heads, a documentary style of talking heads talking about an event that didn't really happen. How can that possibly work? It can't work." And Alex said, "Well, Richard Hatch thinks it works pretty well." I said, "What does Richard Hatch know, for heaven's sake?" And at that point, actually, Richard had stored an X-wing, the front end of an X-wing. Do you have one around here? I saw one today. It's there in the other room. The fighter from Battlestar Galactica that he used to, the Viper. Sorry. Thank you. My geekology is not so good. A Viper. Half of that fuselage in my backyard. So I was very close to Richard because I had his plane in my backyard, spaceship. And then I read further. I thought about it overnight, and I said, "Yeah, this might work. This is possible." And then we saw the final product. I don't know about you, him, whatever his name is. But I was swept away. I said, "Wow, was I wrong about this?" And the 2 days we were filming in, what was the old Charlie Chaplin Studios? Is that where it was?
I don't remember.
Does anybody know out there? It was in old studios off of Santa Monica Boulevard, and the studios were historic. If it wasn't Charlie Chaplin, it was somebody of that ilk, a giant in American film. Anyway, we walked in, and there was green screens, 4 walls, at least 3 walls of green screens, 3 cameras. They were laying down track. They had all the heads of every department: hair, props, costume, makeup, set, camera, everybody was a professional. And underneath them, to fill out each department, were people that really wanted to make this work. But because he had those pros working on it, it was as good an efficient production days as I've ever been a part of. No wasted time, brilliant work on everybody's part, and that struck me. I said, well, this could be okay then, because it makes a difference. He's seen it. You get on sets and nobody knows what they're doing. Well, that's the end of the production right there. This one was brilliant.
It moved along quite efficiently.
Yeah. And then you had Tony Todd, and you had, Gary Graham, and Kate and Richard, and amazing work.
Were you guys all there on the same day? And 2 days of filming. Were you all there the same time?
I think I was. Tony Todd was on the day I was there. Were you? Was he there for you?
No, I think it was the next day. I think
we were different days. We were staggered.
But still, to do all that in 2 days or 3 days at the most, it's unheard of. Anyway.
Well, let me ask you a question, because there's a lot of people watching this who don't know how films are made. They have no idea how this happened. So, I'm guessing you both drove there in the morning, right? You weren't like picked up in a limousine or anything.
Yeah. I have never been picked up in a limousine.
They only do that for people who are on drugs, and they're not sure they're going to wake up or come.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's got to have room for the doctor and the EMT unit there.
Okay. So for people who've never actually experienced filmmaking, you park your car, you walk inside, and then what happens to you guys?
Coffee and the makeup chair usually. And you look at your, last minute, you look at your sides of your part as they're doing the makeup and get in a costume, and then you're good to go.
Now, for you, Gary, how long was that process?
It's about 2 hours, all included.
The eyebrows alone.
The eyebrows, the ears, the makeup, the wig. It's about 2 hours to an hour and 45, something like that.
And you, JG, I'm guessing were shorter, right?
10 minutes. Boom. I never, I've always worn makeup. It had no makeup to go on, and there's no prosthetics, no scars, no, Now, with Martok, it took 4 hours. And in terms of getting on the studio lot, I literally would have to come in about 3 o'clock in the morning onto the, through the Paramount gates to do Star Trek. And the only people on the set the only people on the entire studio lot was the guard at the gate, my makeup man, and me. And that was pretty bizarre. That was a bizarre Hollywood experience. Then when I'm done with makeup, I come out into the light, because it was dark when I came in. I come into the light, and the studio lot is filled with buzzing. It was a remarkable experience for me. This was, as I said, it was filled with professionals in a compressed amount of time, doing the best job they can possibly do in a very short amount of time, and it was an amazing thing. It was like a Swiss watch.
Very, very relaxed.
Like that
set
Timex
well.
the gentleman's wearing there. Yes.
Very, very relaxed set.
Yeah.
Some sets are chaotic because there's so many decisions to make and things to coordinate. And I recall just everything being very chill.
Yeah.
And
who do you attribute that to in terms of the production?
Well, you got to start with the top, I guess. Alec just arranged the right people. If you put the right kind of people together who all believe in the project and the text and what we're doing, and then the sergeants, the ADs and whatnot, and they keep it orchestrated, and everybody just did their job.
And it doesn't happen very often. And in such
what happens, it doesn't happen in non-pro situations. In pro situations, but still, you get a lot of chaos.
Even in pro situations,
Yeah,
if
you
the
get
person
chaos.
at the top is a nutball, then yeah.
then it's
It
the
can be
carts,
chaotic.
the wheels are off the car.
Well, this harkens us back to Gods and Men. You were talking about that was not quite the same level of comedy.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't so much. I couldn't fault the director or the producers or anything. That was just where we were filming and the time of it was, upstate New York in what, mid-August or something like that.
It was.
And it was just horrendous, and there was no cell
It was
cell
the
service.
hottest. It was the hottest temperatures for that period of the summer.
Very humid.
On record.
Wow.
It was like 110 degrees.
Very
and we were in
humid.
an old factory building that had been abandoned.
Poor circulation.
No air.
No air. And then the plumbing went out like the second or third day.
And there was a railroad right next to the building. So we'd have to wait for the trains to go by and say, "Cut, holding for a train." It was, sitting there sweating.
And do you remember the night that we had night filming, and apparently there was a house that was having a huge party with an electric rock and roll band.
That's right,
And
I
Harley
forgot.
Davidson's revving
Yeah.
it. And we had to hold for the Harleys, and
They would.
oh, they're starting another song. Oh, okay, that'll be 10.
Oh man, I didn't know those stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so Gary, you've been there for 2.5 hours or whatever. You are now Soval. You are in makeup. You walk
Okay.
out of your chair.
All right.
You walk on the set, and then what happens?
And then
This is for people who don't know, how.
I report to duty, and I go and I take the seat. They call you to the set, and you sit down or stand, and the director is there to explain what we're going to do, what the scene is, and then we try one for camera, and we get lucky, and we get a print, and maybe we'll do another one for safety, and then it's on to the next deal.
How long are you sitting there while they're adjusting lighting and last-minute makeup and all that?
Not freaking long at all, because of course there's second team. There's the stand-in to let them set the lights on you. If we had a stand-in, which we didn't have any stand-ins, so we were our own stand-ins. And sometimes you get temperamental actors that nobody that we would know. And
No, like Soval.
Who would ask for, you're not doing it. Can you just sit here? I'm going to the bathroom. I need some coffee. No. You get somebody to stand there like a human being, and they adjust the lights and the focus and the shadow, get the shadows out of there. But I don't suffer long in that spot.
No.
I'll just say, okay, second team, and I'll move.
So were you the biggest diva there, or was somebody
No,
else that-
I'm never a diva, ever. Well, a little bit, but not.
I'm sorry, I have to take this.
Sorry, well, I'll just continue.
I'll see if
Go
it's-
ahead,
I'll see if it's
It doesn't
Hollywood.
bother me. Doesn't bother me.
No, it's not Hollywood. Again.
So it's easy. You get used to being comfortable in that environment, which is at first when you get into the business, it's very uncomfortable, very
then it feels like home.
nerve-wracking. Yeah, soon it feels like a very warm, comfortable place because your focus is so directed on what you're doing and who you're working with.
Is there any difference in acting when you're just sitting down with very little ability to move because the camera's so tight on you versus having a full shot and you're walking around, you're hitting marks and whatever?
That's an excellent question. We come into the film business thinking that on stage you can get great histrionics and very, very mobile and be all over the place. But on film, that plane of focus is so tight. Just moving there, if they got you on a tight close-up, just moving a few inches can mean the difference in a soft focus or a sharp focus. But you learn what where your frame of focus is to be in perfect focus, and what your frame line is, and then you give yourself freedom to do whatever is appropriate for the scene. And if the camera operator, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the camera operator is having a problem, you just say, do your best. And do what you want to do. And usually that works out great. Even if there are moments when you're jumping in and out of focus and in and out of frame, as long as you come back to the base point, it works good. Because my contention is, some directors, it drives them crazy because they want everything framed real pretty at all times. My contention is, the gold is in the reality of the situation, and it doesn't matter where you're framed as long as you can capture the gold and really make it real. That adds added dynamism and excitement to your performance, to your whole piece. But
with Gary doing the Vulcan, I mean, you're a pretty still.
Yes.
You're pretty still anyway, but then when you add the Vulcan stillness to it, I mean, when the camera got in watching the Prelude to Axanar, the camera moved into like this close on Gary. It was right there. And, you know, he's such a professional. He can just twitch his left or his right eyelid, you know, and that bespeaks volumes about his history and about the thought that he's talking about with the words. That was phenomenal to watch him.
Well, thank you. And as you know, the way you do that is not to pre-think anything like that. At this line, I'll arch an eyebrow, or at this line, right. I'll touch my face or something. You don't think of anything like that. You focus completely on where you're at in the scene and what you're saying, what you're trying to convey, and listening to who you're talking to. And then once you get because you know there's different shots, pickup shots, over the shoulder shots, and all that. They're going to have to match that. So if you're smart, you remember what you just did, but after the fact, not while you're doing it. You don't want to be watching yourself. You don't want to be. You want to dance on the beat, not ahead or behind it. But that little thing that remembers what you just did, you'll recall that when they come around for a different angle or a coverage, and you'll be able to kind of stitch it together. So that you know, in one cut you're like this, and suddenly you're like that. You try to make it seamless.
Yeah.
Then you're gold. You're gold for the editors, and your performance will cut together smoothly.
So it sounds like what you're saying is acting is actually work.
I think I am. It's not easy.
You're not just getting there in front of the camera and reading the lines.
No, it's not easy.
I'm ready to go home. Give me my check.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
But you do it enough, it starts.
Yeah, you do it for 40 years, and it doesn't become easy. It becomes home. It's like, is your home
that's a good
easy?
line. That's a good line.
No, it's home. And so the comfort level is immense. As a young actor, as you know, when you first come out there, it's like just tension.
Yeah, you don't want to break the rules.
Right.
And nobody really explained you what the rules are.
Right.
And you're just figuring it out, but you don't want to say, wait, somebody, this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
And we all start out in the business not knowing what we're doing. You say,
absolutely.
Gee, I got cast in the part. Obviously, I know something. But.
For instance, I had no idea till we talked this weekend that Gary started out in ballet. I didn't know he was in the corps de ballet of what?
San Diego Ballet.
San Diego Ballet. How about that?
Romeo and Juliet.
Huh? Yeah, that stunned me. I said,
my first professional jobs were as a dancer.
In fact, I've said, people ask, what should I do? How do I become an actor? I said, look, take movement and take voice. That's what I say to them. The rest is going to happen.
Good one.
But the man carried it out. I did neither of those things. Neither of those things. He did. He started out as, you know, movement. And that's a huge thing because being a ballet dancer enables him to be unbelievably still on stage in the image if the camera's here. And that, you know, I was a football player. I had no idea what I was doing. I said, I could do that. And it took me 40 years to begin to learn a little bit.
Did you guys do anything to prepare for your roles in Axanar before you shot?
Well, I had the advantage of, unlike JG, I had the advantage of having played my role before.
How long had you been able to do it? How many years?
Do what?
As Soval.
Soval?
Well, 4 years actually, because you started.
Yeah, off and on.
Pilot.
I was in all 4 seasons, recurring. But
but literally, you're able to work on that for 4 years. Not heavily work on it, but you're able to do it and refresh it and do it.
I had a good sense. The one adjustment from Enterprise to Axanar, I went deep inside my head and gave him. I think he aged 60 or 70 years or something like that. Vulcans lived to be, 240 years old or something like that. So I just made them a little more thoughtful, a little more contemplative, a bit wiser perhaps, reflective.
And what about you, JG?
Well, people ask, they say, what's your favorite role? And I have to say, because I've spent 20 years doing Shakespeare outdoors and indoors, and classic plays and plays before I got into television. And people say, well, I absolutely just forgot what I went back to living Shakespeare and forgot what I was talking about in terms of the science fiction.
And you said the favorite character I've ever played, and then you went into Shakespeare.
Oh, yeah. My favorite character was Martok because I got to work on it for 5 years, literally. And they say that television acting is so much shallower, do Shakespeare. That's where it's really at. Well, they both demand the same things. They're really the same things. It's just one is the camera's here and the other is the camera's way out there.
Different ways.
But I got a chance they started writing for Martok. I could work on him and twist this and twist that and find out new things about his character for 4 or 5 years, as opposed to for a Shakespeare, for instance. Unless you even if you do already know the role, you rehearse for 3 to 5 weeks in American theater. 3 to 5 weeks as opposed to 4 to 5 years, and that's why that was my favorite role, because it was fully me and fully Martok. It was, anyway, that's enough of that.
Well, then I was going to ask about preparing to play Sam Travis
Oh.
in Axanar. Did you do any work on that?
I just studied a little. I didn't study. I read a little bit about Sam Travis of the Alamo, and I really wanted to do something about. I loved in the film Richard Widmark. I think did. Am I right about that? Anybody know the old Alamo with?
I think it was
with
Richard
John
Widmark.
Wayne. I think it was. Richard Widmark. Yeah, I loved that character. There was Jim Bowie. And there was quite a crowd there.
Sam Houston.
On both sides. Well, Sam Houston came in after to clean up the mess the Alamo had happened, but I wanted to make him a country, not uneducated, but a man, a farmer more than a professor, and that happened to get into space travel and the space force. And that's where Chuck Yeager is a good old boy that flies very fast. You know who I mean?
Yes. Yeah. First man to break the sound barrier.
Yeah.
Right.
Hold on for just a quick second. I want to make sure I don't have to go to panel at 5.
We're holding now, and this is an excellent
We'll be
time.
right back after a word from JG Hertzler.
It's a nice time to talk about Eskimo pie.
So good news
Now,
for you guys. Good news for you. I got 10 minutes, so you got 10 minutes.
never mind.
Good news for you guys. I can stay with you a little longer.
There you go. Okay, so Alec gets sued. What are the thoughts that are going through your head?
Of course he got sued. I
somehow thought it was all going to come off, pulled off without a dance, without a trick.
You get 3,000 lawyers in the 5th floor over there in the Paramount building, wherever it is, and of course they said, "Wait a minute, you're doing a Star Trek show, and it's not under our control." And in my opinion, in my consideration, I guess, I could. How can you do this? Well, and he got along.
Then you pull out this. Listen, these fan films have been going on for a long time.
Yeah,
Look
why
at these.
pick on us?
One after exactly. We're just doing the same thing.
There's one reason. This was done incredibly well.
That's what our big mistake was.
Yeah.
So we were
did good.
We were
wrong.
penalized for it.
And Alec did good, and it was wrong.
Penalized.
Yeah, and I don't know. They should have found a way to. I don't know.
One would have thought.
Yeah.
One would have thought.
Hoped anyway.
That the cooler heads would prevail, and they'd say, "Gee, these guys may be onto something here. Let's bring them in and let's have a hey." we could sue the shit out of you. Of course they could and did. But doesn't it make more sense and better use of mind power and everybody's time if we collaborate a little bit? We'll take 90% of any revenue or
95,
we'll
96.
spread our name over it.
Yeah.
We'll have our controllers controlling, quality control, and you guys just veer off the tracks one iota, and we'll go in and fix it or fire all of you and throw you in jail. Wouldn't that be? And Alec would be going, great. That sounds fantastic. You guys take all the credit after we do 95% of the work, which is sometimes what happens in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But we would have all said, yeah, far out.
Yeah, I don't think they. The thing about it is, that it's not about making it. Hollywood's about money. I mean, it's really about not. It's not art. It's about making money, and. There was no money involved in this. Production. There's no way Alec could have done what he did in 2 days with with the crew and the money that he had. It was like nothing, and we did. And
it's a secret, and nobody's supposed to know that it can be done.
Yeah,
it's nobody's supposed to know. And now here's Paramount sitting on this thing, going, wait a minute, he let the secret out.
Right.
This is actually possible.
Yeah,
So
now this isn't being
he
taped.
must be
or anything.
punished.
This conversation
I don't
isn't
know.
being taped or anything.
I
is it?
know. Oh my God.
Uh-oh.
Can you guys
We're through, man.
just my last comments. My last comments. Please. Or I'll never work.
You'll never work in
You're going to be working.
in Lawrenceville again.
But speaking.
Well, maybe next week.
Yeah. So I'm going to end with that question. So Axanar is going to happen. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, in a truncated way.
Yes.
But you get to play Soval one more time. You get to pay Travis one more time. So how do you guys feel about that? About going back in front of the camera for this project?
Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up right. Let's not just be, driven off into the woods and have stones thrown at us. Let's wrap it up. And the fans, it's a fan film. And they wanted to see it wrapped up. Let's give it to them.
I've never thought about that. They might, if we do good. Everybody involved, Paul, Gary, Kate, myself, whoever is involved now. What are the possibilities? Even though they've gone through this legal thing once. What are the possibilities that there's something greater could grow out of this? It's been my advice to Richard when he tried for years, Richard Hatch,
God bless him,
to get Battlestar Galactica's the franchise to do it, to do a new production, and he would have been outstanding in creating it. But that wore him down. I think that wore him down considerably. So my advice is move this story somehow into a different context. So we're not. It doesn't have to be the same story. Let's get started with. Let's, as you said, wrap up Axanar in the best possible way that we can do it, and then move on to the next project. That's what life in this business is, and I encourage it because he's got an incredible crew. Use it to do something new. Doesn't have to be Star Trek. It shouldn't be Star Trek. It should be. Well, maybe you could connect with Mark Zachary. Mark Zachary, who's doing that Space Command, and do a couple of But there's 8 million stories in the naked city.
Yeah, we're mercenaries.
Right.
We go where we're independent contractors, and we don't have any
hired guns.
I'm not willing to devote the next 15 years of my life on trying to get one project. Hey, actors are chameleons. You give me $1, I'll be something else.
All right, I have to run into the panel room. If you want,
we'll take it from here.
Come and if they're just answering questions, you can do like a little panning over to show the audience if you want, and just keep them on them. But Guys, just
All 1,500 of them? Gosh, no. Stay seated, please. No.
you guys for
For a memorable interview?
tomorrow on stage. I ask you the same questions again. Remember your answers.
Okay.
Oh, good.
For a memorable interview. Thank you. And what is that, by the way, the drip drop? I know Tony said it. What is it?
He made it up.
What did he make?
Who did? Tony
Todd.
Tony Todd.
Drip drop. He was describing something.
He was talking about the Ares being a better ship than the D6 on the Klingon side. It was a better ship, bigger, faster drip drop.
Bigger,
knows what
faster,
drip
drip
drop
drop.
I've never heard it before, but it must have meant something to Tony. And
I think it was in reference to a venereal disease, if I'm not correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Now back to Eskimo pies.
Oh, hello. Here we are. Are we still on, or is this thing on?
All right.
I want Eskimo pies now.
I know, right? How do I get out of this? How do I get rid of the video?
There should be just a remove button on the bottom of the screen. The bottom of the screen of the.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. There we go. Well, that was good. And geez, we got a great audience, over 100 people watching that. And I hadn't watched. Listen, I hadn't watched that in years. And the best part was I was like, hey, JG and Gary are talking exactly about why we got sued. You know, it was too good. I like it. So we're going to make a video out of just that and post that.
There was a user here kind of talking about that. iMaximus said they did the same thing to the Stage 9 fan recreation of the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
They had so much done, created from the ground up 100% by fans, and it was so good, too good, that they got a cease and desist. And I think that is, it's a real shame that CBS, Paramount, whatever you want to call them, they don't foster fan-created works. They don't encourage it. If anything, they try to discourage that. If you create something that is too good, then that's when they want to come after you. You would think that just like JG and Gary were talking about in that video, collaboration. I think that there is certainly a lot lost by not collaborating. There are so many silos, it sounds like, in Hollywood that you don't want to go outside of the box to do something because you've got to make your money, and fans creating something that is either just as good or even superior to the main product, they don't want that. They don't want the competition. And now you would think that they would take healthy competition and bring that on to make themselves better, but that's the last thing they
exactly
want. They want to shut it
does.
down.
And actually, Scott the Cyborg mentions it, but Lucasfilm still has a great relationship with fan films. I mean, Lucasfilm, listen, I think Lucasfilm is genius in the way they handle their fans. When they needed extra stormtroopers in the Mandalorian season 1, they went to the 501st. You know, when I know JJ Abrams brought people who were fans who had done R2D2 workups and brought them onto the crew. You know, they have a very different relationship with their fans. Star Wars does, and I won't comment about CBS and Paramount, but I can comment about Lucasfilm, which is amazing with their fans, and they really honor the fan films, and they honor the fans who do different works, and that's very nice to see. It's something we hope, which we hope also is, since it's owned by Disney as well, is the same with Hulu and the Orville. I think we're going to try and get them to, feel the same way as their sister company Lucasfilm does. So
Was it the? I'm sorry, Alec.
No, go ahead.
Was it the season finale of season 1 or 2 of The Mandalorian where we saw Luke Skywalker?
Season 2.
It was season 2. Okay. So I remember they were showing all the deep fakes online, comparing the Luke Skywalker used in season 2 of The Mandalorian compared to what this other guy did, a fan. Didn't that guy end up getting a job?
Yeah, he
got hired, and he was like the main one that did Luke for season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that
would
there
never happen at CBS and Paramount.
that guy would have been sued.
Yeah. He would have been sued. He would have been sued. Yes. Yeah, that's.
He would have committed suicide by 2 gunshots to the back of the head. The guy would have been disappeared. Yeah, and that's the problem. Is look at how much better the CG was for Luke in season 3 of The Mandalorian. It was spectacular. I really thought I was looking at a young Mark Hamill, and Lucasfilm knows how to cultivate and use that skill. And it's a real shame that
and that is, so one, it's Lucasfilm, right?
Yeah.
2, I'm not sure how much Disney has to do with that, being that, they're the parent company, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Lucasfilm, it is part of their culture. And Lucasfilm is, going back to George, is so much tighter with their fans, right?
Yeah.
Lucasfilm does not see their fans as simply a way to make money. They see the fans as kind of like the lifeblood of their franchise, and that's why the Star Wars franchise is really it's ubiquitous, where Star Trek is much more a niche than Star Wars is. It's hard not to be a Star Wars fan. Right. I mean, it's, because it is so culturally relevant. And I mean, we've got so many icons that are, really outside of Spock, no one in Star Trek has ever gotten that kind of cross-cultural resonance that you ultimately look for in a brand, right? Whether it's Michael Jordan or Muhammad Ali, right? They have cross-cultural significance. And Star Wars has that. I mean, Star Wars is Darth Vader, Luke, those things have it. And I think because of that, Lucasfilm really understands the importance of cultivating that. And also, listen, the 501st is such an amazing organization, so they do good works all the time. They're always doing charity work. It's just, it's hard not to, and you see how Lucasfilm brought them in. The 501st brought them into the whole of the Star Wars universe.
Do you think that Star Trek fans, seeing how CBS is about fan stuff, do you think that if they needed to get a whole bunch of extras for something like that, like they did for the 501st, do you think Star Trek fans would do that, or just do they have a bad taste in their mouth and would just say, screw you, why would we help you guys?
Let me first, before I get into trouble with CBS Legal, let me just say, yes, Axanar is coming out this summer. Our last shoot is next month. The last 2 actors will be shot next month, and then we will have all 18 actors, 3 times what we have for Prelude, will be in the next 2 episodes of Axanar. So there you go, Jeffrey. We talked about it at the beginning, but yeah, if you come in late, you don't necessarily hear that. Anyway, rephrase your question again there, Jefferson.
I was just asking, do you think that if Star Trek had a need for a lot of people fast, like Star Wars did and got the 501st, do you think that on the Star Trek side that there would be a group of fans just as willing to do that? Or do you think that now there's kind of a sour taste in the mouths of fans where they kind of think, well, why would we want to help you? Look at how you treat any fan that's trying to do a thing that they like doing.
I don't know, Cheeto, you got any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that there would be plenty of people that would turn out for something like that. The thing about the thing about Trek fans is that, in the face of adversity, we always rise up. And, I mean, even against CBS and Paramount, who, created not created Star Trek, but like fostered Star Trek to us for all these decades. So I really do feel like that if they did put a call out there for something like that, I think Trekkies would show up. And I get your point where you're saying that, should we really? I mean, should we really show up since they've been treating us like dirt? But I really feel like, the Trekkies would try to rise up and show, hey, no, we are not going to be bitter fans. We are going to be here and we are going to show you that we love Trek. We don't love CBS and Paramount. We love Trek.
That's a good way of putting it.
Mage, do you have any thoughts there?
I tend to agree with Cheeto. I feel like the fandom, at most of times, we try to live up to the ideals of the franchise we love so much, the Federation, and like look at the vision, and you've got to try to live it if we're going to get there. I feel like I can see why there would be a branch of fans though that wouldn't want to help out with something like that, though. I can get that point of view.
Colin says, mind you, they say about Star Wars, JJ Abrams he made Star Wars and Star Trek so bad he has wrecked both franchises. They were great before he directed them. I wish he would. I know I disagree. Cheeto, tell us why you disagree with that statement.
Well, I mean, okay, so JJ Abrams, so 2009 was a bit of a departure from what we knew of Trek. Like it was Trek, but it was a departure. Like the looks were different. But here's the thing: is that when JJ Abrams went into it, and I mean, I do have my issues with Abrams Star Trek, but he went out of his way to say this is its own thing. This is Trek, but this is its own thing. And honestly, myself as a Trekkie back in 2009 had a hard time because I'm like, spoilers for Trek 2009, they destroyed Vulcan. And I'm like, how does that even make sense? And that never happened in the canon. And it took me a while to realize as I grew as a fan, oh yeah, this is different. JJ Abrams had the respect for the fans to be like, look, I'm going to use this sciencey, timey-wimey excuse to start my own thing. And it's not like he's just like, you need to just forget everything that happened. He said, no, I'm taking Spock from the timeline. I'm bringing him over here. So, there is still a prime timeline, but this is its own thing. And I think that was very smart for him to do, he basically was smart with the fans. And he said, look, Trek fans are smart. I'm not saying Star Wars fans aren't smart, but I'm just saying like Trek fans are smart. They will get on board with it. So though it wasn't superbly received, I feel like time heals most wounds in Hollywood and cinema when it comes to stuff like that. And so I really feel like we're clamoring for a Star Trek 4. There's a lot of people clamoring for a Star Trek 4 in the Kelvin timeline. I am not going to sit here and say that I'm superbly one of them, but it's still, I would love that the more Trek, in my opinion, the more Trek, the better. Not all Trek is for everyone. Star Trek Prodigy was not my cup of tea. I will never, ever, ever say that it is not Trek. Like you have people who say, oh, this is not Trek. This is more Star Wars. No, it is Trek. It is absolutely Trek. It's just not my preference. So it's all everybody's
verse, my friends. You don't have to like all of it. You like what you like. And Cheeto, I absolutely agree with you that I will. There's lots of problems with Star Trek 2009, but the fact that JJ, at the suggestion of Robert Orsi, is my understanding, made it very clear that this was an alternate timeline. I thought he brought enormous respect from the fans because of that. And I wish Kurtzman had learned that lesson and brought that same thought process to Discovery. It would have cleared up a lot of fans' feelings. Also, we're joined by Laura Ann. Laura Ann, how are you? I figured we needed another person. Laura actually got to see and work with Gary Graham at our film shoot back in October. So welcome to the channel, Laura.
Yeah. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, you're welcome. So tell us your time working with Gary. Laura was the behind the scenes photographer and videographer. tell us about your, because I know this evening Laura showed me of some of her Gary shots and said, "Can I use these?" Which of course I said, "Yeah." Tell us about what your thoughts were about Gary.
Yeah, I've been working nonstop from set to set, and so I have not seen the news, and I just happened to see this live, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna hop in and see what they're talking about, and I was like, wait, what happened? Oh no. And yeah, I was just absolutely heartbroken. So Gary, like, it's really funny because Gary at first, like, I didn't know how to take Gary, like just the things that he said and everything were so off the wall sometimes. And in the very beginning, before I got to know him, I was like, oh, he's kind of different. And like, I thought, maybe he doesn't like me or maybe, I don't know. But I soon discovered that really he just loves the kid, and it came across as making fun of people, but really he was just having a good old time. He loved to kid people and make jokes about people, and like I said, at first I didn't really know how to take him, but then I learned, especially we went to dinner one night with the cast and crew, and he was there, and I got to actually talk to him aside from just set. And I just learned that he really is
Oh, we lost Laura. Hopefully she'll come back. But yeah, Gary joined us for our wrap dinner.
Sorry, I was trying to to stop a call, and it accepted it instead.
No problem.
No,
were you talking about the wrap party dinner? Someone really wants to call Laura. We'll give her.
Don't you hate it when there are things like that happens? That's why I put my phone on silent, because I have had it ring or buzz during a recording, and that just throws me off. But real quick, while we're waiting on her, there was actually a scene in Star Trek 2009. It was just before Kirk got booted off the bridge and off the ship, where they were talking about that. They were talking about basically stating this is an alternate reality because of the incursion, and what happened with the Kelvin changed everything. And that's what Uhura said was alternate reality. Spock said precisely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And again, huge kudos to them for doing that. Also, I think you have a hard time saying that JJ Abrams ruined the Star Wars universe when Force Awakens made $2 billion. Now, granted, it wasn't a good movie, but nonetheless, they did pretty
$2 billion
well.
is $2 billion.
$2 billion.
That's $2 billion more than what I've got.
Yeah, exactly. So, Laura, why don't you finish up your story?
I'm sorry. So I texted right before I came on here, Michelle Alderman, who is the makeup artist for Axacon. Oh, yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, did you hear about Gary? And that she kept trying to call me. And so it was messing with me being on the live feed here. Anyway, yeah, so I got to, actually spend time with him that night at dinner. And I learned that he truly is just a gentle soul. Like, he loves being a father. He loved music. He loved just living life. And I absolutely fell in love with him, and I fell in love with his humor and just the way that he loved people. And it was just awesome. He speaking of Michelle Alderman, he gave her a hard time in that makeup chair. He was always cracking jokes and, complaining constantly about, the pins poking in his head and other stuff like that. And she did not know how to take him. And it was just so funny.
Oh, that's funny. Michelle was our hair artist who handled it. So she had a lot of work, obviously, with Gary and with our Klingon as well. Yeah, Gary was a cut up. He always was keeping the set lively, let's say. even when he was on, between takes and stuff, he'd be cracking jokes. But yeah, he was definitely a cut up. And as as I said on the other stream that we were on, when we shot Prelude 10 years ago now, when he was on in the makeup chair, I walked into that makeup room and it was just him holding court, telling jokes, being funny, and there was just a very light atmosphere as opposed to Tony Todd, who was there, who was just like really serious and getting it. He's much more method than Gary, and it was a very different experience. But Gary was a lot of fun, and of course Gary brought Soval back from Enterprise he bridged it over to Axanar. I mean, and someone asked me the other day if I had written Soval in, and I met Gary when working on Renegades. So Renegades was fall 2013. And Bing Bailey, who's our DIT and colorist, introduced me to Gary when he was on set. And which was, I got to chat with him and this and that. I didn't say anything about Axanar. I reached out to him later after I'd gotten Richard on board. And that was really what, for a lot of them, as JG said in the video before, I'm not sure JG finished that story, but JG was going, when he first read the script, he was going on about, oh, it's all talking heads in space. How are you this isn't going to work. And I said, well, Richard Hatch thought it was great, and JG was, well, if Richard says it, kind of very jokingly. And so anyway, the next day, JG calls me back and he says, Alec, I think it will work. And he had reread the script with a little more of an open mind and he liked it. But but we got JG because I knew someone. And again, Richard was already committed. And then we got Gary because JG and Richard were both committed. So yeah, it's good to know someone. And it's good to have the validation of the other actors as well. So yeah, and it was nice. It was nice to hear them. It was nice to hear them, both JG and Gary, talk about, both pretty clear about why we got sued. I mean, it wasn't a secret to anyone. It was because of how good we were.
If anything, that should be validation that you were doing something right.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And the good news for everyone is we continue to do something right, because so far the next two episodes are, as I've said before, we've got the assemblies put together, everything in the timeline. We're just obviously missing two actors, but no VFX obviously or compositing or anything. But just from a story perspective and what we have, it's pretty damn good so far. Yeah, there's going to be a couple holy crap moments in it with both people and people you don't know. You were going to say something, Jefferson?
Yeah. How much of the script was already written for Soval, and was there a plan B if Gary didn't want to come back and reprise the role?
So the script was written, and Plan B was to change the character to Sarek.
Okay.
So the idea was that Soval was passing the baton to Sarek. That was the idea. So when he said, "Yeah, I'll do it," we're like, "Awesome," and we just rolled with it the way it was. I'd always hoped that Gary would come back, and we just threw a lot of money at him. And he was happy, and we were happy, and it's a shame because it's the good news is you all get to see Gary Graham perform one more time, and this is his last performance, before he passed. So we're honored and privileged to have him to have him in the next 2 episodes. And I think you'll like it. I think, we tried to give him some really good stuff because he had some of the best lines in Prelude.
Well, we talk about Star Trek a lot with Gary, so I want to give you guys an opportunity to earn your 90s cult movie badge. A Gary Graham movie, wondering if any of you had seen, called Robot Jocks. Anyone familiar with that one?
Oh, yeah.
Watch a little bit of that today. And for anyone who hasn't seen Robot Jocks, go watch it. It's a good movie. I think for 90s, for the tech that we had at the time, it holds up okay. But I certainly recommend it. It is a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. It is.
Achilles. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I was scrolling, I think it was Netflix or Amazon the other night, and there was another movie, which name escapes me right now. The Last Warrior. And Gary, so it's right around 1990, 87, I think, maybe 90. Anyway, it's about a coast watcher in World War II, which Gary plays. And I was like, yeah, he's young in that movie. He's yeah. So and of course he played Tom Cruise's older brother in All the Right Moves, which is just.
I don't think I've seen that one.
I mean, they look very similar. They look like they could be brothers.
Yeah, that's a great movie. You gotta. I mean, that's like early. That's Tom Cruise right after Risky Business.
I would venture to say that the second most well-known Gary Graham role besides Star Trek Enterprise would be Alien Nation.
Yep.
Of course.
Yeah. Very good show. That's another one I would recommend. If you haven't seen Robot Jocks, then make a weekend out of it. Watch that and the Alien Nation TV series.
Now, Alien Nation, was it one season and then those movies?
It was there was the movie with
James Caan.
James Caan and
Mandy Patinkin.
What was it? Wasn't the name?
Mandy Patinkin.
That's right. Mandy Patinkin. And then after that, they did the series. In the series, I'm going to look up how many seasons it was. I do believe you're right. It was one season.
I think it was on one. It was really weird because
they did television movies.
One season, and then they had 4 or 5 television movies after it. It was such a weird way to bring back a show.
But they did that a lot in the 90s. Like they did it with Babylon 5 too. Like they did all 5 seasons, and then they also did like the television movies, even some of them while the series was going. But I mean, that was kind of a 90s trope, is that if something wasn't exactly hitting right on like the syndicated circuit, they would kind of move it a little bit to like the movie era, like the TV movie era type
the
of
only
area.
And it
the
was
only
one
Doctor
season.
Who you got in the 90s was a TV movie, so that tracks.
Yep, there you go. And also going to welcome Keith M. Sedor, who hosts our Axanar podcast and is a Star Trek fan.
Hey, everyone.
Who's raging at the people that hate New Trek.
I thought this was about Gary. I just made one little comment because you guys were talking about Kurtzman and Abrams. Somebody took umbrage to that. I don't know.
Oh, I could talk to you about Kurtzman. I am actually a Kurtzman sympathizer.
Oh, okay.
I'm
sorry,
but we're not here talking about Kurtzman. So
no, I like talking about Gary. In fact, I posted some nice pictures on the Trek Experts Roundtable Facebook page that during the same weekend that JG and Gary did the interview that we watched earlier, I got to sit down with him and do an interview with him, and it was really nice. And I posted some stills from there on the Trek Experts Roundtable Facebook page if you guys want to check those out.
Yeah. Were you at Axacon?
I was, 2018, and I also hosted the panel with him, JG, and David Gerald. So that was also a fun bit that weekend.
That was 2009, right?
18.
Was that 18?
Yep.
18? Yeah. Oh, that's right. Because 2019 we didn't have those guys. We had those guys in 2018.
Correct.
Which is the year we did it in conjunction with Royal
Manticoran.
Manticoran Navy, that group.
I'd never heard of them before that weekend.
Yeah, or since. No, those are good guys. Those are good guys. That's the guys from the Anna Harrington universe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we just spoke with Laura real quick about her experience with Gary. What was your interactions with Gary like, Keith?
Again, much like Laura said, he was a very kind and gentle soul. He was very generous with his time. Playful is really the way. I mean, to know who Gary is personally in his personal life, and to see that contrasted to the way he portrays his characters on screen, only goes to, I mean, you can watch him and say, oh, he's a good actor. He plays a good Vulcan, and just be like, okay, lots of people do that. But to know who he is as a person and to interact with him, where he's lively and animated and fun and carefree, to contrast that with playing a very serene and sedate character like Soval only further serves to amplify how good of an actor he truly was.
Yeah, and he wrote a book on acting too.
Did he?
Yeah, I think it was called Flying and Other Acting Lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to check that out.
Did you get a copy, Laura?
No, I have seen it before, and I thought about buying it. Now I definitely will.
Yeah. Gary was, and listen, Gary. The funny thing about Gary and JG is two opposite sides of the political spectrum.
Totally.
JG very liberal, and Gary very MAGA, and so which was interesting. We never talk politics. I mean, I talk politics with Gary once in a while. I remember a conversation we had in San Diego over brunch he had his wife and I was with my girlfriend at the time. But it was just very superficial. But yeah, Gary was part of that whole Adam Baldwin, John Voight right-wing group, which is a very, very small group in Hollywood. There's not a lot of those. But it didn't affect anything. I mean, at one point I wanted to do a presidential debate with the two of those guys, JG and Gary, but we
in makeup, in costume.
So, that would have been interesting. Soval representing MAGA, and then Martok representing Biden. Yeah, that would have been interesting. But it was all good. I'm just look. Some of the comments here. Back in the times when there were 22 episodes in a season.
Miss those days.
B5 creator was asked to write a 5th season for Enterprise. He did one, and they wished to get rid of the 2 producers on Voyager, so did not use the 5th season. That's interesting. Okay.
I never heard that J. Michael Straczynski was ever asked to write anything for Star Trek, which is interesting because of the whole Deep Space Nine thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would have thought that there would be no way in hell that he would do anything.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not sure that. I think that's more urban legend than anything.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was an awful show.
Mantis.
That was an awful show.
Another one of those obscure 90s gems.
NBC at its finest in the early 80s.
There's Brandon
you gotta be Gen X.
From our last shoot back in October. It's great to see Brandon is based out of Utah and has a YouTube channel with Josh, our other cameraman, Josh Santon, called 16 Stops. So I urge you. We posted. They shot a video on the bridge at the end of the shoot last time, and we posted it on we linked to it on our YouTube channel. So if you go to updates on our YouTube, on the Axanar YouTube channel, you can find it. And listen, we recently kind of redid the Axanar YouTube channel, and I made an updates playlist, and I put it right at the top. So anyone who's interested in what's happening at Axanar, go there. Our next shoot is next month, 2-day shoot. 1-day shoot basically. Second day is just behind the scenes stuff. But 2 actors. We've currently got 16 of 18 actors in the can. We got 1 more shoot, and then we are done. Principal photography will be wrapped, and we are very excited about that. Very excited to go into post-production, and we're working hard to get it out this summer, guys. Believe me, we really, really do. But I'm really excited about it. And listen, you know, God rest Gary's soul, but boy, we're so excited that we were able to get him, and he's part of Axanar.
To know that there's still new Gary Graham material yet to come is really exciting.
Yeah.
And some new Richard material too.
Really?
Yes.
You haven't revealed that before.
Yes, we haven't. Well, yeah, we have a little here and there, but basically we found some stuff from Prelude that was never used.
That is awesome.
And so Richard will be in, and it was great because there was one big line. You know, a lot of it you'll see earlier. There was one big line of Richard's that kind of that's at the end of episode 5, and it's just like, oh, having that line of Richard's, it was so important to give a little weight and to kind of close out. It's the last line of Karn, and to close out that character's story arc. It was great. So yeah, so there's stuff for both those guys, and it's good. You, like I said before you joined, Keith, there's going to be a couple of times where you go, oh, you got that actor, and then there's going to be a couple of times where you go, who the hell is that? They're awesome. I tell you, our Vulcan captain is awesome. You will freaking love her.
Her, nice.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's a former she's a student, Howard Fine student that I met back in 2012 when I took my first acting class at Howard Fine's studio. Richard was my first acting coach back in the 90s, but my first acting class at Howard Fine's studio in 2012 is where I met Tina. And so she had moved to Atlanta, and I said, how do you feel about playing a Vulcan? She was like, huh? What? And we worked through it. She's really good. She's one of the, a young actor who knows how to audition on tape. So I just sent her the lines, and I said, here it is. And here's some Vulcans you need to look at. And it took a week. I mean, she was not good the first tape she was sent back. Mm-hmm. But you work on it, and she's a pro. And she was like, okay. And she gave us some different stuff, and I had Mark Edward Lewis watch her stuff, and Mark was like, this is not good. I said, Mark, this is like the 4th one, and it's so much better than the first one. So and so Mark worked with her a little, and yeah, we are both so happy with Tina's performance.
Well, let me ask you this. Will she be in just one of the Talking Head retrospective parts, or will she also be in a flashback battle scene?
No, she's just in the Talking Head part because we didn't shoot the bridge stuff.
Okay.
There's a tough question that I've got that I wanted to ask, kind of in the sort of the same lines as with Richard Hatch. Let's go back to October and take away October shoot and say the shoot was scheduled for February. What does that look like that you did not have the October shoot and did not have Gary?
Oh, if we didn't have the October shoot and have Gary, we would be, it would be a lot different. I mean, right now we are, if you think of the production as a mountain, we are on the snowy part going up, right about to crest the mountain. And once we finish this shoot, we will be on the downside of the mountain. Now that doesn't mean it's easy. Going down a mountain is sometimes really, really, really tough, and that's why you should always work on being able to go downstairs, because going downstairs is a totally different set of skill set than going upstairs. Going upstairs is all strength. Going downstairs is all balance and stability. It's like that in filmmaking. You use one set of muscles to get to the top. You're finished with principal photography, and now it's all post-production. It's all, who's your post soup, who's your VFX house, who's doing the compositing, who's doing the music, who's doing your sound editing. I mean, all of a sudden it's a whole new world with different crews and different. So yeah, if we hadn't done the October shoot, I mean, after the January shoot, we were like, it was good. We were like, oh, we're almost halfway done with principal photography. But the October shoot, we got so much in the can. And we also reshot Tanaka, the first officer. Vince had done it in the January shoot, but he did it on short notice. He wasn't supposed to do it. And we were like, hey, why don't we make him Tanaka? And so we weren't happy with what we got. So he's in Atlanta. We brought him back for a day. We said, hey, come, we're going to figure. He came back, knocked it out of the park.
The same Vince was playing the Afrosian?
He was the guy playing the Afrosian in the 2019 shoot. Yeah.
Okay.
To be more specific, had we not had the shoot with Gary, how much of an impact are we talking that we would have had with him, and I mean with the character Soval, if the shoot hadn't happened before this
if we didn't have Gary, we would have had to recast that role and that character as Sarek instead of Soval, right? Because you're not we never considered recasting Karn,
right?
We're not going to recast Soval, right?
You just bring in a different character.
You bring in a different character, right?
And I am so glad that Gary was able to do that, Alec, because the reality of it is as much as I love the character of Sarek, and Mark Leonard was stellar in the role, the new Trek era has done Sarek to death. I mean, they've just revisited this character ad nauseum. So I'm glad we had Gary. I'm glad we had Gary as Soval, and I think it just further serves to make Axanar its own thing, and it didn't devolve into something hacky by having to repurpose a known character.
Yeah. Now, it would have been nice because Sarek would have been a younger Sarek, right? The beginning of his career.
Listen, Journey to Babel.
20 years before Journey to Babel.
Okay.
Which he was still, Sarek was pretty old in Journey to Babel. So we're in a great position. I'm just like, half of me is working my ass off for this next shoot. Half of me is holding my breath, like, because I know if this shoot comes off the way we think it's going to come off, it's just going to be amazing. So there you go. Yeah, Cheeto.
So that does kind of bring around one of the things, like talking about Soval and the character, because that's really my interactions with Gary. Is I did not know him personally, but I always latch on to the characters that have a lot of growth in Star Trek. Like my favorite Star Trek Deep Space Nine character is Nog, because he just had such like from episode 1 or whatever episode his first one was, 3, I can't remember, it might not have been 1, but all the way up through till like the very end when he is rising above the stereotypes and everything, and he's in Starfleet Academy, the meeting between him and Sisko in his office. But that's what Soval was for me in Enterprise. Was he started off as this really just hard-nosed person towards the humans. And I love his journey from episode 1 all the way up through, the end of season 4, where he looks at Archer and this is more to Gary's credit, Gary's credit, because, just his acting. But like there was such a great character growth with that character because of Gary throughout that whole show. And then for you to bring him back in Axanar, just even further push that character forward. And that's what I loved about Prelude to Axanar, because I told you last week when you were on our show is, you know, I had seen Prelude to Axanar way before I was doing any kind of Star Trek internet thing, you know, way back. And you know, one of the greatest things I saw, and I got chills, was when Soval showed up in Prelude to Axanar, because I was like, I love this character, and oh my gosh, he's still around, and this is the actual guy who played Soval.
It lended legitimacy to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely gave legitimacy to it, and yeah, it, you know, with Gary, it just was like he brought such an elegance and a regalness to that character. You know, not knowing him personally, but I'm just, you know, through his acting and stuff like that. So that's one of the things, like with Soval and with Gary and everything, and hearing people talk about it, is just that, yeah, he did a phenomenal job at bringing what made Soval great in Enterprise into the Prelude to Axanar, and I'm sure what will be in the actual Axanar product. You know,
Cheeto, and you and I talked about this on your podcast. It's like when Gary shows up in Broken Bow, the pilot for Enterprise, you just want to punch him in the face. You just like, oh, what a dick. Yet this is one of the, you know, I think we many of us feel that Enterprise is aging well, and this is why, one of the reasons why, is what you just said. It's the growth of Soval. So we get to the episode in season 4, Kashara, when he and Admiral Forrest are speaking at the Vulcan embassy, and you know, Forrest asks, you know, is asking him about what's going on with the Vulcans, and Soval at that point has become a humanist. You know, he's become a fan of humanity, and he simply tells Forrest, he says, "You guys got to space way too fast," and Forrest is like, "Are you guys scared of us?" You know, right before the bomb goes off. So
I pulled up the line because we talked about that a lot. I think each of the last couple of podcasts we talked about Soval. So here it is. We don't know what to do about humans. Of all the species we've made contact with, yours is the only one we can't define. You have the arrogance of Andorians, the stubborn pride of Tellarites. One moment you're as driven by your emotions as Klingons, and the next, you confound us by suddenly embracing logic.
Yes, that's it.
Spot on, Jefferson.
Well done. Yeah, well done. I know, and it's great, and Gary delivers it so well. So well. You know, he really has some really fine acting moments there.
He does. And Gary's arc, you know, the character arc of Soval mirrors the entire, like, kind of overarching plot of Enterprise, that growth of the development of the Federation and the you know, the interspecies relationship between Vulcans and humanity. So the fact that Gary's acting was so great, you know, really helped the show be as good as it was, and I would argue is a phenomenal show.
I really feel like it was more like a linchpin, like, you know, like it was the linchpin that kind of brings the humans and the Vulcans together. Like at that, you know, that, you know, the respect more so than, because the Vulcans were never going to fall in love with humans, but they would respect humans for what they were. And I think that was one of the big linchpins that both Gary, you know, as Soval, and Archer was, and even Forrest at certain points, was bringing together.
Totally.
Well
said.
Yeah, I think so. And that is something we tried to carry forward into Axanar, which you'll see in the next 2 episodes, especially, and then when if you listen to the audio drama of the full-length script, you'll find out that I really try to carry that forward with Soval's character. Whereas the Vulcans are pulling out of the Federation, that's one thing, but Soval has grown beyond even the role that he is in season 4 of Enterprise, because you've got to assume that Soval was one of the prime movers of the founding of the Federation.
Absolutely. And I think that's evident by the dialogue in the Vulcan scene, Walk and Talk, where he talks about, where they came from in so short of a time. And if you look, really what I think it is, Alec, is a combination of two factors. The acting skills of Gary, coupled with the insightful writing of Axanar that is bridged from the writing of Enterprise. It evolves the character. It doesn't leave the character static over the time from Enterprise to Axanar. And I haven't seen what he's going to will have done in his final Axanar performance, but just going from Enterprise to Prelude to the Vulcan scene, there's an evolution of the insightfulness of the character that Gary really delivers on that. You get a lot of actors who'll just read a script and they'll deliver an adequate performance, but you can tell that Gary actually got the content and that, okay, I'm playing this character a few years later, but in the timeline of Star Trek, it takes place over a much broader period of time, and people, humans, Vulcans, whomever, evolve and change over a broader period of time. It's like we are far different today than we were, say, just 20 years ago. So as people. So just imagine how much further a Vulcan went over a greater period of time.
There was a question here. Fortner says, how hard will it be to fight the urge to put everything Gary and Richard did into the final cut, regardless of it works or not?
I asked you that the other day.
That's a good question. And the answer is, this is the beauty of doing an assembly before all the actors have finished doing their performances, because we've gotten it now to the point where we know what the characters need to say. And so they're literally, for at least Soval, there's literally not going to be anything on the cutting room floor. Whatever Gary said makes it in. And so there's nothing extra there. Now, like I mentioned, with Richard, there was stuff from Prelude that never made it in. But the reason why that was the case was that Christian Gossett, the director, had rewritten Karn's parts like the week of Prelude, the week we were shooting Richard. He rewrote a good bit of his lines and didn't give them to Richard. So Richard shows up and he's reading the old script, and all of a sudden, Christian realizes, oh, Spank, I screwed this one up. And so he was having to feed lines to Richard. So we had some extra stuff, and a lot of that makes it into the next two episodes. But we've got it pretty tight. So it's kind of like pre-edit. It's like the edit has already happened, and we're just waiting now to pop the pieces into the assembly, wherever that may be, VFX or compositing of shots and stuff. So that's a very good question there. And that's on purpose. As I mentioned on NerdTube the other day, I wrote that line specifically to be, one, not on the nose, right? He doesn't reference Strand by name, right? He simply says an Andorian acquaintance of mine. So you have to have seen Enterprise to know what he's referring to, right? But and as I told the story, and forgive me if you've heard it already, but Gary didn't make that connection when he was doing the lines when he was shooting for Prelude, and it was pretty obvious that there was just something missing when he was delivering that line. And so I told Christian, the director, not wanting to. I generally don't talk to the actors directly. I'm generally talking to the director and letting the director tell if I have any notes, and I generally don't. In this case, I told Christian. I said, Christian, tell him the Andorian acquaintance is Shran. So Christian goes over, and Gary was watching us the whole time, So Christian tells him, and Gary looks at me and goes, just like that. And the next take, he nails it, and that's the one that's in Prelude, the very next take. Because he got it. He made that connection, right? And great actors are making the connection up here. They're not projecting it, right? Gary's, it's happening in his head. When he says an Andorian acquaintance, he's picturing Shran, but he's internalizing the relationship he has with Shran. So because he's internalizing that relationship, it shows itself in the performance. And that's why you get great performances, because the great actors are able to internalize, not show you, right? When they're showing you something, it's typically that's bad acting, right? So Gary does such a brilliant job at that. And that's really what you want from these actors, is you want them to pull out the, listen, my favorite line of Prelude, and my favorite line, because I wrote it, it's Alec writing for Soval, all right? This may not be canon Star Trek to a lot of people, but I got to write for Soval, and it's incorporating Shran, and it's a great fucking line. So there you go.
I mean, for those people who might not have it off the tip of their head, don't push the pink skins to the thin ice.
I love that line.
The fact that you didn't write it where, Shran once said, it makes it so much better that it's not on the nose like that. Like you get those feel good chemicals from her. Like, I caught that.
It was kind of like Easter eggs for us.
I say the name. Yes, and when you just say the name, it's all memberberry. It's like, oh, hey, remember Shran? Oh, yeah, remember Enterprise? It's a lot more sophisticated the other way.
And
it allows the actor to do his job, right? It allows the actor to process it and show you and you see the process happening. Rather than indicating, is Howard Fine always called it indicating, when you're giving the performer, you're giving them what they want. You're angry, so you do this. That's indicating, right? I wasn't angry. I was just pretending to be angry, right? And so by not being on the nose, you give it. And listen, this is why this is the good stuff in Star Trek, right? I told Cheeto the other night, I said, that scene between Q and Picard at the end of season 2, when they're saying goodbye, is just, oh my God, it gets to me every time, because the acting is so great, because Picard is generating all these feelings and he's not saying it. He's going through it. You see that Jean-Luc is processing the emotion of Q telling him he loves him, and realizing, oh my God, he loves me. He doesn't hate me. He's not trying to, right? All this stuff is going through Picard's brain. And because Patrick Stewart is just such an amazing actor, he doesn't say a word. He doesn't let you know. He doesn't do anything. He's processing that inside, and you see that on his face, because it really is happening to him. That's why Howard Fine, Howard Fine's one of the top acting coaches, and he's Austin Butler's acting coach, and Bradley Cooper and Chris Pine's acting coach. Howard always says acting costs you, and it costs you because you really do go through the emotions, and sometimes you'll see someone on screen. I use the example of the final scene for Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad, where he kills his captor. But there's so much happening on his face and his character, that he's going through so much, and I just go, where did he find that shit? Like, what is he going? When the actor Aaron
Paul.
It's like the first time I saw it, I'm like, where is he going to dredge that shit up that I'm seeing on his face, right? And that's the cost part that Howard Fine always talks about. It's because he's literally digging shit up in his past and giving it to you and processing it and going through it, and you're seeing real emotions in the guy. So I appreciate that, and I think we've seen a lot of good acting in Star Trek over the years that we maybe don't quite appreciate as much. So
one thing I just want to say about, you were saying earlier about fan films or not fan film, but about what's canon and what's not. For me, it's like with video games, fan films, all these other like pieces of media, stuff is canon until it's proven otherwise or something just doesn't correlate. So like right now with Prelude to Axanar, it's very good quality, and that's why I feel like to me it feels canon until there's something that comes along that's like clearly like bumping it out, like, in that timeline or something like that. But honestly, it's like, for me, it's like Prelude to Axanar is much better than like Discovery season 1. Like I'm not saying I hated Discovery season 1. We're not talking about that. But like with Prelude to Axanar, I really feel like that something for me like that is canon more, than something else that is of lower quality, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you, because the reality of it is that I feel like we were kind of milk-fed between the Roddenberry era and the Berman and Braga era as to what Trek was. And by the time we got to the 21st century Trek, anything JG or Kurtzman had their hands on, versus, okay, here, right around the same close timeline, we've got Axanar, and Axanar still has the look, the feel, the warmth, the nostalgia of the Trek we grew up on for the first 25 years of Star Trek. And none of the newer ones have that. So I agree with you completely, Cheeto.
I think if you're thinking of, and I always love hearing that people consider Axanar canon, because it kind of means that we did part of our job, right? But that part of my job was to make Axanar appear like it was canon, and so I think it fits in well, and that's on purpose, right? That's all the little things that we did to let you know that we're fans, that we honor Star Trek, that we're not going to do things that don't make any sense. I mean, we're not going to make the USS Ares 3 times the size of, the Connie. We're going to have Soval in it.
You're not going to have a scene on the Ares in engineering that you filmed at a Budweiser plant. I'm disappointed. I don't think I can watch it now.
I know we just couldn't get into the Budweiser plant.
Yeah,
Although we should film a scene where they're running down the hall and they open it, a door opens up and it's a Budweiser plant. They go,
it's full of kegs.
No. I can close it. And go to the real engineering room.
Could we get a comically huge turbo lift area?
Oh, yeah.
A big, huge, just cavernous. Where the hell could this be on the ship?
What was that? Yeah.
I actually feel like, because wasn't the ship that they found in Enterprise that was bigger on the inside, that came from like the 27th century, wasn't it? So
26th.
What, 26th?
So, Doug Drexler said it was 26th.
Yeah, so I honestly feel like it is not outside, and I know it's just a big flub up by like the design department and everything, but like it's not outside the realm of possibility for the Discovery to have such a big interior than the outside, because that technology apparently existed before the 32nd century. So
yeah, after they rented the Doctor Who and had the TARDIS go, look, it's bigger on the inside.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm not saying it's not stolen. I'm just saying. I'm just saying they put a fresh Star Trek coat on it.
Listen, everyone, I want to tell everyone, make sure you subscribe to our channel and go down there at the bottom. You'll see if you go to the Axanar.com website, click on newsletter, subscribe to our newsletter so you get all the latest Axanar news. We will be here every Friday night until we release Axanar. So please make sure you come back next week. And I want to thank my guests here, Jefferson, Cheeto, Keith, and Major Rage, and Laura Ann, who had to leave. Thank you guys for coming out and sharing stories and thoughts about Gary Graham. We miss him already. but look forward to his last performance in the next 2 episodes of Axanar. And any last thoughts before we sign off, Jefferson?
Oh, I think I pretty much got all of it out. For anyone who joined late, who went to see some of the things that Gary Graham was in besides Star Trek, go check out Robot Jocks. It's a good movie. And the Alienation TV series. And apparently he was in Mantis, which I remember watching some of Mantis in the 90s, but don't remember him in that. So if I'm going to go down the 90s rabbit hole, might as well include that.
There you go. Cheeto.
Nothing. Just, I mean, as I said, one of my favorite characters in Enterprise are the ones that have the best story arcs, and I feel like Gary brought that out of the Soval character, because you could have a very flat Soval, or you could have had a very dynamic, in a Vulcan sense, Soval, and I think that's what Gary gave Soval, was a very dynamic story growth with that character. And I think, as I said, it's a hard balance to grow a character that's a Vulcan. So he will be sorely missed.
Absolutely.
Major Age, what you got?
I just wanted to say that I feel like it's having acted in the past and now coming back to it as branching into fan films myself, being able to revisit a character and then kind of advance that character and grow it shows a mastery of the craft that not a lot of people could do what Gary did when he came back to reprise Soval for Axanar. But not everybody could take a character that somebody else wrote and then advance them and develop them in an organic way. So, pretty well done, I must say, sir.
Thank you. Keith, what you got?
To Jefferson's point, real quick, a buddy of mine, my buddy Rob, had mentioned Robot Jocks earlier in the week, and he also pointed out that Jeffrey Combs is in that.
Oh, yes, he is. Oh, my God, that's right.
The man who's been everything in Star Trek.
Yes, Jeffrey Combs is in Robot Jocks. Oh, yep. Yeah. Great reminder. So there you go. Must see.
Yeah.
By the way, Cheeto, talk. Go ahead. Keith.
I was just asking, can I plug the new podcast?
Go for it.
I am hosting a new podcast between two of everybody's favorite Klingons, JG Hertzler and Robert O'Reilly, Martok and Gowron. It is called Wormholes and Donut Holes. We don't have the iTunes feed propagated yet. There's an issue for some reason. But the first episode, yeah, right, exactly. The first episode is published on the main hosting page at Computer Talk Radio. So and it's a hidden link. So for anybody who's here can preview the premiere episode early. It is computertalkradio.com. So 3 words, computertalkradio.com/podcast, all lowercase, Klingon in all caps. So the word podcast is lowercase, the word Klingon is uppercase. So computertalkradio.com/podcast Klingon. Enjoy.
There you go. Cheeto, I was just going to say, you mentioned the scene with Nog and what a great character Nog was. And Nog had some of the greatest, for whatever reason, they gave Nog some of the greatest scenes from other movies. So in Treachery, Faith in the Great River, Nog is playing Tony Curtis in Operation Petticoat, if you've seen that movie. And then in the scene you're talking about when he wants to get into the academy, that whole scene in Sisko's office, that is if not intentional, an amazing coincidence that it totally rips off An Officer and a Gentleman.
I mean that's what it's always compared to, so, but yeah.
Great writers make great references.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, nice Star Trek coat of paint on it.
Yeah, it's Aaron was so good in that role. I just such a good job. Well, listen, thank you everyone for joining us for this Gary Graham retrospective and remembrance. We greatly appreciate it. Please come back next Friday when we'll do something else, whatever the hell that is. But we'll be here Fridays at 7:00. I want to thank our good friend Alexander Richardson, who's probably gone to sleep by now, who's in Scotland, who's whose significant other gave birth to their baby boy a couple weeks ago and is doing great. I also noticed Michelle Evans finally popped by. And as always, if Michelle Evans pops by, I've got to plug her book, The X-15 Rocket Plane, which is available on Amazon. If you are a fan of the X-15, you've got to read this book. It's big, it's bad, it's awesome. I love this book. So anyway, there you go. And we'll be back next week. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter at the link below to get all the news. And as always, Axanar will be coming out this summer. Let's knock wood, but we are about to crest the mountain, my friends. So thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing you guys again. I love having you guys on. Live long and prosper, my friends.